You're listening to Gameday Tarps podcast, coast to coast, with your hosts, Ryley, Dakota, Dallas, Daeden, and Wilbs.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gameday Tarps podcast. This is episode 48, and today we've got a special guest with us to go over our World Junior recap. It's Colton Davies from the Daily Faceoff.
Yo, what's up, guys?
Hey, welcome
back.
Welcome back, Colton.
It's fun to be here. My pleasure.
Yeah, guys, I think there's no better place to start than the beginning. 6 of us here mostly have the same opinions. Let's just talk about this roster makeup. I'll just read off the names really quick, and then we can talk about it. Goaltenders: George, Ivankovic, Bjarnason. Defense: Aki, Bonk, Dickinson, Gibson, Molendijk, Minio, Price, and Schaefer. Forwards: Baudouin, Cataford, Cowan, Gauthier, Howe, Luchenko, Martone, McKenna, Nadeau, Pinelli, Rakoff, Ritchie, and Jagger. So let's talk about who shouldn't be here, who was put in the wrong spots, what management did wrong. Let's just break it down. Whoever wants to go first.
Let me hear it, fellas. Tell me why the QMJHL guy shouldn't be there.
I said that from the beginning. Okay, I'll jump in on that. I said that from the beginning. I said there shouldn't be a single QMJHL guy on this team. They're just not good enough. Gauthier played nails, and Cataford had some good moments, but I was not proven wrong.
You weren't.
Unfortunately.
No.
With who was left off.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
I don't know. Like, the Q is different. I find the Q is always a different league compared to the O and the WHL. Like, it's less competitive, as terrible as that is to say. It's just there's less elite talent in that league than there is elsewhere, right? So you have players like Gauthier and Cataford and stuff who rise up above the others. But at the end of the day, did Gauthier and Cataford need to make the roster over guys like Bennett Seneca or guys like, TJ Ginla's injured, so he doesn't matter, but Andrew Cristall or whatever, right? Like, there's lots of other guys that, there's lots of other guys that could have made the team, I think, right? But Hockey Canada has that bias to pick from each league, so they try to uphold that. But I don't think you're wrong. I mean, you need the role players, but at the same time, it's about building a championship team. So, like, Jeff Merrick said it best last week on the sheet on Daily Faceoff that you can teach skill to grit, but you can't teach grit to skill.
Yeah.
And that's 100% true, right? Like, guys who are bottom 6 players and role players don't normally have that goal scoring ability, right? They're there to be a pest and there to play that role. Whereas guys who have that goal scoring ability still can play a pest role if they need to.
For sure.
So,
We were talking about this before the episode started. Why don't we get into the character and like the way this roster was built and some of the players that were placed on different lines, the chemistry that wasn't really there. Porter Martone and Carson Rakoff, they weren't on the same line. What do you guys think about that?
I feel like
that real quick. Sorry, Will. You can take, because I'm just talking about Cameron here. His comment about how when they asked him about practice, and they said like, wouldn't it be good to have practiced and let them get some chemistry? And he said that isn't how that works. Stupidest comment I've ever heard from a coach. But go ahead, Wilbs. Finish your thought.
I agree with what you said. Like, with that's a stupid comment. Like, because chemistry always works. We can see it with different type players, and like the talent alone that they left off on the team is just like, what the heck are we doing here? Like, there's so many players that they could have picked on this roster too, but like for Martel and Rakoff to not play together when they're one of the best duos in the OHL, and you decide not to put them together, like, what are we doing? They're on a tear in the O. Like, I don't understand. And the funny thing is like, he wasn't even registered on the roster. They kept on healthy scratching Rakoff. And I'm just like, that's not how you utilize his game. He's a pure goal scorer. And I've watched him play multiple times, and he is a sniper. He can snipe. He has his office. And when you utilize him well, he works perfectly. And they never utilized him well in the tournament either. So putting Carson Rakoff and Martone not on the same line together is just honestly bonkers to me. Like, I just can't believe they never did it. Like, it's insane.
I want to jump on that, Wilbs, too. And I'm thinking, like, when I watched the media reports after it was all said and done, when Canada got knocked out, they were saying, like, oh, we did the best we could. Well, you kind of didn't. Like, I got to give credit to Peter Anholt of the Western Hockey League, Lethbridge Hurricanes franchise. He's building a super team out here, right? A juggernaut to contend in the Western Hockey League playoffs this year. Why couldn't they bring the best on the best to this tournament, right? Like, you got a coach in Dave Cameron. Sure, he has a solid track record with Hockey Canada in the past, but when he goes back to his normal league in the OHL, like, he doesn't have the greatest track record. Like, why couldn't we have brought in the best staff, the best players? Don't just cover your ass, say that you did bring in the best and the best. And clearly you didn't, because a lot of these guys were left off, and I'm sure we'll get into that here in just a moment. Like, I just think it wasn't really the right response from their exiting media.
I think what we were looking for was players that had talent, but would also compete hard. And I think we had that. I don't think we were short on talent. We didn't score at times, and that seemed to be a collective thing. I don't know how to explain that. You look at 8 shootout shots, and we didn't get a goal from the caliber of player we have. It's just one of those things that happens. But we were looking for talent. I think if you go and break down the stats of the forwards and the defense, you'll see everybody has talent. They have good point totals in their leagues. They can play creatively, and they also brought two-way compete. So we didn't want to go with one-way players. We didn't want to go with just competitors that didn't have any skill, and I thought we had a good combination of it, but it didn't ultimately come forward for us.
And to continue with that, though, like, we know that it was extremely biased concerning the fact that Luca Pinelli was on this roster. I'm not, hating on him. He's a great player, but there would be other players that I would choose over him. There's a bunch of players that I would choose over him, and honestly, like, that's how you know that it was a bias pick. Like, Dave Cameron coaches him. So that's my take on that. I don't know if you guys agree, but, like, I feel like there's a whole lot other players that could have been picked over Pinelli.
Yeah, I knew that when we were watching it all together, like, we were chatting amongst ourselves in our Discord group, like, you would always mention how Pinelli, like, every game, he'd be missing 5 to 6 chances in close, right? Within a couple feet of the net, and he's just shooting wide. He's not passing. So I'd like to hear your thoughts, Rye, on, like, why you think that Pinelli just wasn't the greatest choice for his position to be there at Team Canada.
Yeah, again, and like kind of what Wilbs said, like, you don't want to crap on this kid's parade. Like, he made Team Canada, good for him. Like, whether it was because his coach was the coach of Team Canada, that is what it is. But, like, he was, first off, that second line, Cameron says they changed the lines a bunch. That second line didn't change the entire tournament. McKenna on the left, Catton in the middle, Pinelli on the right. McKenna and Catton numerous times got the puck to Pinelli in the slot, and he missed it. There was times like McKenna, I don't know if everyone saw that highlight, where he no-look backhand straight across the blue line, far ice, straight on Pinelli's tape, right? Like, insane pass for a 16-year-old kid to be making. And Pinelli misses from above the circle, high and wide, rims it back out of the zone. Like, any time that Catton and McKenna seemed to be building an offensive threat, and yes, Pinelli was a part of chasing pucks down, and he was really skilled at that. But when McKenna and Catton turned it into offense, it always ended up on Pinelli's stick, and it didn't end up in the net. So that was the problem I had with it, was like, why are they not, like, literally Carson Rakoff on that line, a true goal scorer, getting 6 chances in the slot? Okay, I'm not saying he's scoring 100%, but does he score 50? Is that 3 extra goals for Canada when they need it most? Like, I don't know. Is maybe even if it's, someone else on that line other than Pinelli, someone with any little bit of goal scoring, right? Like, I thought all along that McKenna should have been with Cowan, because you should have had a one flat offensive line, right? Just don't worry about the defensive side of it. They're not going to be good defensively. Let them play offense. That was my thought. I thought it should be like Rakoff, McKenna, and Cowan. That would be all offense, no defense, right? High risk, high reward. And if it worked, it worked. At least try it for a couple shifts, a game, something, right? They didn't even try anything. That was my problem. They didn't try anything different, right? Like you said, they didn't try Rakoff, Martone. It was almost like ignorance intentionally, putting Bonk at the top of the power play, knowing Dickinson does that in London and Bonk doesn't even know how. And then the power play's flat. And then all of a sudden they put Dickinson up there and Bonk in the slot and they scored less than 30 seconds into a power play. Right? Like
magic.
The ignorance to and neglect against what works for them to say, no, we're going to do it our way, regardless if we win, just seemed to be so stupid to me. That's my thought on just that whole thing.
Ryley, why don't you ask Colton your question you put in the group chat earlier that you were going to bring up?
Yeah, for sure. Colton, I was thinking, like, do these guys need to hire Hockey Canada? Do they need to hire on like a 3 to 5 year contract and make it young guys, like even if it's ex-NHLers or whatever, like, you know, let's say Rick Nash, who's trying to get in the Team Canada GM world and stuff like that. Like, do they need to hire a GM and a coach for like 3 years or 5 years that this is their job? And it's like the U17s, the U18s, and the World Juniors. They can do all three because all tournaments are not at the same time of the year. They'd be working all year round. And then they would see, you know, a half decade of players come through their system from start to finish. And it could change a whole lot for the program, I think.
Absolutely. Like, it's a big thing because you would be able to have that pipeline, right? And that's exactly what you just talked about, is it goes down and down and down. And you can have guys who play in the U17s and then play in the U18s and then can come up to the World Juniors, and you know the chemistry between all three. You look at the Hlinka Gretzky tournament that took place last summer and how Martone and McKenna connected all along that tournament. They didn't why didn't they play together either at all in the World Juniors? Like, just the simple things. And you brought up a good one too. Oliver Bonk should not be running a power play. No chance in hell. Not a first power play, not a second power play. That's Sam Dickinson's job. Yeah, Matthew Schaefer got injured, so Bonk had to replace him, and that's kind of how that went down. If Matthew Schaefer could learn to find a goalpost and not hit it, that'd be great. Sure. But unfortunately, he didn't. And, you know, that's the problem, though. You have somebody like Oliver Bonk running your power play, and that's not how that even works in London. So what are we doing there? And then you go back to just the way some of the lines were formed, and you talked about it like off the hop there with Rakoff and Martone not playing together. Made no sense. So when you go through this whole Hockey Canada realm, for me, everybody needs to be fired. And the selection committee that picks this team needs to be rebuilt from the ground up, and exactly with former players, like whether it's like Shane Doan or Rick Nash, guys that are involved in that Hockey Canada circle that can oversee and watch it for years. Like, there was no like I don't even know what the word is, but there was just no oh damn, I'm blanking on the word, but nobody higher up on Hockey Canada was able to even take oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking. Accountability. Thank you. Fuck. But yes, thank you. Accountability. So I don't get it. Like, how could you not take accountability for the roster that you built and blame it on other shit? It just doesn't make sense. So for me, having that coach and general manager set up, or not even a coach and GM, just having those people put in place where they can watch the 17s, watch the 18s, see how everybody performs, comes up, you can build your championship team. I think it works great. Will it ever happen? Probably not, because Hockey Canada is terrible. So
how bullshit was it when you heard the comment too in that exit meetings of like, well, we were just tired. Okay, yeah. Everybody's tired. You guys played the same amount of games as everybody else, and Czechia were also one of the few, most of all of them scheduled to practice immediately before their game. Like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And Canada was just too busy trying to relax, you know, maybe play a little curling on the ice, which they actually did, right? But you have the audacity to go out there and tell the media that, oh, we're just tired. Literally everybody is tired, yet you played the same amount of games. You know, they just weren't hungry for it. The rest of the world is catching up with their programs, and we made literally a bad judgment call out there, and we're kind of looking a little lackluster out there now on the world stage as a hockey nation.
Also, I feel like being tired isn't really an excuse. Like, these guys are how young? They should have all the energy in the world.
Yeah.
Like, if you're tired for that, quit. You're not
That's what I
gonna
was.
survive in the NHL.
And it's
So-
not like you were off hockey for a whole season. Like you guys came off from playing hockey to play more hockey. Like your energy level should still be high.
Exactly. And I was thinking too, right? Like, so he mentioned that they were exhausted. And he said both physically and mentally. Well, when you're going through a roster makeup and you're talking to coaches and stuff, isn't one of the things you shy away from is if a coach is, this guy hits a mental wall and he's not really able to give it his all after so and so time, right? Like, isn't that something you're looking to avoid? And all of a sudden the whole team's exhausted and they're just like, it's fine. We just don't have it. Like, I don't know about you guys, but from day one, the team felt off and it just felt like there was no positive hope, right? Like there was never this good, you could just feel there was never going to be this moment, this golden goal, this last minute save if they were down, right? There was never a moment where it felt like this team had what it took to win this tournament, from the management, from the coaching, from the players. It just never felt like. The only place it felt like it was in goal, right? Like that was the only place you're like, okay, they picked the right goaltenders. That's about it. Other than that, it was suspect all the way around.
Well, I mean, and who knows? Maybe you do get those moments when you're not scratching Martone and you're giving McKenna maybe more ice time.
Yeah. 13 minutes a night for the guy who leads the CHL in scoring, regardless his age, is just stupid. If he could do it at U18s, you're adding one more age bracket. You're adding 19-year-olds over the U18 bracket. That's it. One more age group. And all of a sudden needs to be sheltered. Like, how does that make any sense?
Well, not to mention you bring him, but you don't bring Michael Misa.
Yeah.
What are we doing there?
Or you had Perek, you gave him a second chance, and then you send him right back down.
He's the guy they needed when Schaefer went down.
100%.
Yeah.
He would have controlled that power play and quarterbacked it and just done everything he needed to do, right? But like, you look at other players who were left off that team, like Colby Barlow, same with like Matthew Wood, a guy who played on the team last year. I get he had a shitty camp, but like these are guys who have played international hockey. Like,
or Yakimchuk.
Yes. Yeah, but Yakimchuk and Hockey Canada don't like one another. So
really? Oh, I didn't know.
Yes. There's a little bit of beef between them, which is for whatever reason. I don't know if Yakimchuk had plans to go to NCAA before he committed to the Hitmen or what happened there, but there's a problem between the two. So that's just what I've been told by people. So that's the main reason why he was left off the roster. Not even think he was invited to camp. So
yeah, he wasn't even invited. Yeah.
Yeah. So and like even then though, you talk about guys like Etienne Morin. There's a Quebec kid who actually is good. Like he plays for Moncton, Calgary Flames, second round draft pick. He's good, but like, did we need guys like Andrew Gibson? Probably not. Like
Gibson is the one guy I did like. He played a solid game up until that 2-minute mark of the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
I liked him too. I liked Gibson too. Like I'm the type of guy that would like build my roster with a little bit of strength and toughness. Like yeah, you need it though. Like I feel like you need it. And you go back to like what we talked about kind of a little bit prior too, was just like guys like Cataford and Gauthier and Cole Baudouin and stuff like that. You got these guys who can hit hard and play that physical side, but what's the reason for it? Like when the whole point of this is to go and score goals. So like, I don't know. I don't know. For me, like you can go back, like Jeff Merrick and I talked about this a little bit, and you can go back to like when Steve Downey made Canada back in 2005.
Yep.
And the Hunters picked him, and it was like, okay, why is Steve Downey of all players on this roster? Well, because he can play that agitation role and he can do exactly what he needs to do. But the Hunters took him and went from this high level dude who had so much energy to going right down, right? And he did not act out once during the World Juniors. I think he got maybe 2 or 3 penalties. That was it. But he'd go on the ice and he would just fuck with people. And that's what they wanted. Was a guy like that who could draw penalties. But then you have guys like Cole Baudouin and Cataford and Gauthier and Gibson who were taking unnecessary penalties, not to mention Easton Cowan and Carson Rakoff, and just the lack of discipline that just went through that whole roster.
For sure.
But the lack of discipline goes right back to Dave Cameron. So,
and his comment saying that he can't tell them to be disciplined. It's up to them. What do you mean? You sit. He takes a dumb penalty. You sit him. It makes him think.
You are the coach. If you can't get a hold of the room like that, get the fuck out. Like, you're the coach.
Yep.
That was the most undisciplined team I've ever seen. 34 penalties in 5 games played for Canada.
He said
that is brutal.
Short of a tournament to sit people after like a simple mistake. So like that goes to your point, like of him. They should have sat him. Well, there he is saying something stupid again to another point. Like, yes, you can sit them. It's not going to hurt you if you sit a guy for a shift or two and let your 13th forward that probably should be up in your top 6 play. You know.
Well, there's that lack of confidence again from the beginning. He's basically saying in that statement is, I don't have a good enough team to sit a good player if they make a mistake. That is the underlying tone of that statement right there. And it's like, and back to their camp, every game's going to be a hard game. There's 4 or 5 teams that can win this. No, you need to be going into it saying, this is our tournament. No one is going to even score on us. No one's going to beat us one time this entire tournament. We're the best hockey nation in the world. By dumbing it down and saying, oh, the Swedes, they could have our number this year. Oh, the U.S. are pretty good. They could get us. Oh, those Finns, they're good. We might lose to them. Like, also, your whole room just goes, poof, full deflation because you're telling them how they have a chance to not win. Like, doesn't make any sense.
I think that played a big role too, though. Like, I was talking with a few people in the industry, like after the Latvia game, and like, I said to one guy, I said, if I was a scout in the OHL, I was texting him, and I said, if I was the coach, if I was Dave Cameron, I would have walked in that room and probably broken every fucking stick in that room. I would have been so pissed at that team. Like, how dare you all of a sudden pull up your socks with 5 minutes left in the third period and act like you give a fuck about the game? Like, that's not what Hockey Canada is. That's not what we embody. Not to mention the penalties and everything else that coincided in that game. That team lost and since that loss was the laughing joke of the hockey world.
Colton, every time I saw the camera pan to Dave Cameron on the ice, he looked so skittish, so solemn, as quiet as a goddamn field mouse out there. I did not see that bench alive at all during the tournament. He had his hands in his pocket, head down, or sometimes watching the obviously the game, but he did not take initiative in that locker room or behind the bench for the boys. And that ultimately cost us.
Yeah.
And that is not the type of coach you want.
No. And like you it's weird because there's a guy like Chris Lazary who's on the bench who won a Memorial Cup, who has that championship pedigree. Why didn't you let him just take over and let him try to spark a little bit of light in that or fire in that group? Not to mention, I just put this together in my head. How did Michael Misa not make the team with Chris Lazary as an assistant coach?
Is he Saginaw's coach?
Put in a good word.
Yes.
Yeah, he's Saginaw's coach. He's Saginaw's coach.
Prek and Misa both didn't make it. And then, because now, like literally was it yesterday that Misa just got named the captain of Saginaw?
Yes.
Yep.
After they traded out Hay or whatever, Ethan Hay?
Yes, Ethan Hay.
That's crazy that, I didn't know who any of the assistant coaches were, but the fact that Saginaw's head coach was there, won the Memorial Cup last year, and didn't bring his 2 best players is bizarre.
Yeah. Well, and I think
some of the most insane chemistry together too.
Exactly. Like the team could have been so different if there was anybody with a brain running that team. But unfortunately, there wasn't. So.
Well, didn't John Keane tell us last episode that Canada went with a more defensive approach to this tournament, which is probably the dumbest thing to do at a tournament like that when every nation's bringing the best of the best to their team.
That's why they brought this guy over over like Perrick.
Like, you can only play defensively so long. Those teams are such powerhouses. Yeah, that's probably why you got tired. You were on the defensive side the whole time.
And I wanted to actually talk about this too, because Canada got almost no offense from their defense, right? Let's just only talk about the gold medal game. USA, right? We'll get to the games later, but USA down 3-2. Who burns in the zone? But defender Cole Hudson, who snipes it top shelf because they had another wave behind the offense that came in. And then in overtime to win gold, who does one of the best passes of the entire tournament? Zeev William up the ice, right? Like, oh, look at that. 2 offensive defensemen in the final minutes of the tournament that completely changed the entire trajectory for their team. Like,
and ASP.
Yep.
Dude was literally the player of the tournament. Like, are you kidding me? That guy was unfucking believable. Like, I just don't get it. Like, I don't get it. Canada, like Matthew Schaefer could have been that for Canada, and so I guess that's where we'll never know. We'll never know that. And Schaefer will never get another chance. He's going to the NHL next year. He's going to be a full-time NHLer. He's not going to be playing World Juniors again, which sucks because they could use him next year. But like guys like Tanner Molendijk, I expected more out of. Guys out of Sam Dickinson, I expected a hell of a lot more out of. But
I think Dickinson had a freaking chain around his ankles that was so short. He wasn't allowed. I bet you he was more worried about doing anything than like he was just like, nope, I just got to sit here and play defense.
Yeah.
And that's not part of Dickinson's game. Like, you know, as a London fan, I should know what like these type of players are used to being like. And Sam Dickinson is not a defensive defenseman. He's known for his offensive ability. Like, he can skate. Like, he's unbelievable. You let him go with the puck, he'll rip one. He'll rip one past. So with the defensive mind, anyone who is an offensive defenseman on that team had to learn like a new role, and it's just something new. And like that's not a part of Sam Dickinson's game at all. He's not like, sure, he can be good on defense too, but like his role with the Knights is to be that offensive defenseman, and he's made an impact for that Knights team more than like anyone knows. Like he was unbelievable, but in the World Juniors, where was that? He didn't really have any of that offensive ability. So
I'm gonna take this one down the 401 from Wilbs down the Windsor. Like, when you have the leading OHL defenseman in the plus-minus category in Anthony Cristoforo for the Windsor Spitfires, if you want to say that you wanted more play-at-home defensemen, that's the guy that should have been invited to camp too, if that's what you're looking for, right? Over a guy like Sawyer Minio. That's just my opinion. You want to take it a step further? Offensive juggernaut in Liam Greentree, you know, born in 2006. That whole 06 group in the OHL, he's got Beckett Seneca beat by a total of 30 points, right? Before the tournament started, he was beaten the entire 06 class with 186 points. St. Perrick, Beckett Seneca, Porter Martone, all those big names are on that list. And where's Liam Greentree? All the way at the top, leading all those guys. And he wasn't even an invite, for Christ's sakes. That was an embarrassment.
At least fucking give the guys who have been lighting up an invite. Like if you need goal scoring, because like you're gonna need goal scoring with the big dogs like Sweden, like Finland, like the States, because we knew Sweden and USA were going to be top dogs coming into this. We knew that's what was going to happen, and I think if we brought the talent that we brought, maybe it could have been different. We will never know. We will never know what would have happened. But you leave all that talent at home. You don't even send an invite to the guys who deserved an invite to even get a chance and a shot at the team, because then you get to see the spotlight of these type players like Liam Greentree, like you said, because he's been lighting it up. Andrew Cristall got snubbed 2 years in a row, man. Like 2 years in a row. And everyone knows what type of player he is. He's a sniper. He's a pure goal scorer, once again. And it sucks that Iginla couldn't go to this tournament, because if Crystal made that team and Iginla was on that team and they were on the same line, like
lights out.
Come on. Like lights out chemistry right there. So, you know, who knows what would have happened if we had all this talent on this team. It's just crazy to me, like how we were structured this tournament. Like we just couldn't get it done because of how we were structured, and there's no one else to blame but the coaching staff on this.
Yeah,
Colton, there's a few other names I wanted to bring up to you. I'm sure you might be familiar with a couple of these names out in the queue. I know Day is. Tell me your thoughts on if these boys should have deserved an invite. Alexandre Blais of the Rimouski Oceanic, Justin Poirier, former 50-goal scorer last season with the Bay Jaka, and Jonathan Fauchon, former Armada, now on the Rimouski Oceanic with Alexandre Blais. Do you think those gentlemen should have definitely deserved an invite at least, considering Jonathan Fauchon is also the leading QMJH scorer this season?
Yeah, with Fauchon being the leading goal scorer, I thought maybe he'd get an invite, like just because of his goal scoring ability. And same with Justin Poirier. Like Poirier is so like he's 5'6", and I get that that's probably where the whole thing goes out the door for Hockey Canada. But what does that matter? Look at Cole Caulfield and what he did in the fucking World Juniors, man. Come on.
Oh yeah,
It doesn't matter. Like I don't know. I thought Poirier. There you go, Stankoven. Probably a way better guy to use as a comparison.
But
exactly, Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah.
But still, like it just doesn't make sense. Like you want to build a team that is going to win gold. You want to score goals. So why not take the best players available? So yeah, I think Blais. I like Alexandre Blais. I like him a lot, but I think for sure that Poirier deserved a shot at it, 100%.
I think Poirier and Hockey Canada might even have like something there because he didn't even get invited to the CHL Top Prospects game a couple of years ago.
Correct.
Or last season.
Yeah.
And he put on, So I don't know.
There could be internal problems there for sure as well. But when you are building these teams, like I said, like you got the guy like Fauchon who's leading the queue in goals. Why you not get him? He would have been a great fourth line guy, right? Like he could have been the Teddy Stiga that Canada needed. But no.
Yeah, for sure. All right, should we jump into the standings and how kind of the groups wore out, and then we'll go over the playoff scores from there? All right, so we got the Group A, which was USA, Finland, Canada, Latvia, Germany, 1-5. And Group B, Sweden, Czechia, Slovakia, Switzerland, and Kazakhstan in that group. So was there, obviously, let's just talk about some surprises. We've talked a lot about Canada. Let's talk about some surprise teams, some teams that maybe let down. You guys take it from there.
Okay, so I want to mention this team because I have to give their flowers for what their performance was like. Team Latvia, man, I mean, they surprised a lot of people. They kept it somewhat close with the States, somewhat close with Finland, beating Canada, the upset that is going to be heard around the world, basically. Like, everyone's going to hear about it because we don't really see this happen, especially with Team Canada. We never really see that. And then quarterfinals happen, and they keep it close with Sweden. But there's two main players that will be on the radar for sure now. Obviously, Matejko, who's already drafted by the Capitals. Capitals have stacked prospects coming up, which we'll definitely dive into later for sure because they have so many prospects in that system that were at this tournament that played unbelievable. And Lennart Feldsberg, who's in the QMJHL with Sherbrooke, and he's been lighted up in the Q2. So to spotlight in the World Juniors and to play the way that he did, NHL scouts are going to be on that. They will definitely be on that goaltender. That's for sure.
Him and Rimpinen got a lot of attention. Like, there's going to be a team that takes both of those guys between the 5th and 7th round, 100%. Like, the way Rimpinen really boosted his draft stock just by basically being the reason Finland made it to the gold medal game is crazy. Like, he was unreal, in my opinion. I mean, and Feldberg's was too. But I think one of my biggest surprises too would have been Jesse Kiskinen out of Finland. That dude lit it up all tournament. He's a 3rd round pick out of Detroit. Of course, Detroit knows what they're doing with those freaking Scandinavians. It's unreal what they do with them. But this kid is lights out. 1-timers from the OV spot, just sniping it. Good passes. He was good. Finland surprised me though because they weren't supposed to really get there. You know, I think a lot of people thought Sweden was going to beat them, but they didn't. And one of my other favorite players all tournament was Felix Ungersorum over on Sweden. That kid is unreal, man. Third round or second round pick? I think second round pick by Carolina. That kid played on the World Championship team this year as an 18-year-old for Sweden. In like, oh man, he's so good, just so good. But the flowers to Latvia, absolutely. Like Eriks Matejko and Feldbergs and that team, wow. It's so cool to see teams like that just do better and like beat Canada and just, get themselves part of that. So
I'm just going to send mine to Czechia. Jacob Stonsel, a few boys might know, plays for the Kelowna Rockets. There was about the top 10 scorers. I think there was about 6 Czechians that were up there. Out of the 6 out of the 10 top scorers, all of them were Czechians. And Jacob Stonsel was toward the top there. Big standout player for me in this tournament. He really helped Czechia defeat Canada and make it to the bronze medal. We had Mateo Kochi, Kamloops Blazers defenseman. Nice to see that he got back-to-back years with the bronze medal. Congrats to him. But yeah, I think Jacob Stonsel from Kelowna, he had a really good tournament, boys. Would you agree?
I agree.
Yeah.
I also want to bring up Edward Saleh. He was big in clutch moments. Obviously, I don't think he really had the best OHL season last year, and I'm hearing his name come back in the World Juniors, and he looks better. He looks improved. He looks complete, and he was a good player on Czechia as well. Reason being why they won the bronze medal. Like, he would score in clutch moments, and he was a big player on Czechia as well.
I just want to bring that up since you talk about Shala. He joined the Czech team. They hadn't medaled in a long time. Then they got 3 straight medals the past 3 years. Mm-hmm. As a 17-year-old, Shala came in Halifax. And then as an 18-year-old, Shala was in Gothenburg. They got the bronze there. And then they got a bronze again this year. So, I mean, Shala, who knows? Maybe he boosted the confidence of this program, but there was definitely something around him. Like, he had a vibe that he carried around that program.
From what I had heard talking to people, he brought a lot of leadership qualities to that team and just a lot of like offensive tendency, which is like what they needed. They needed a game changer and a player that was like that, like him. Like, and you're 100% right. When the second he stepped into that program, Czechia medaled 3 years in a row. And he's been unreal that whole way through. Big reason why he is, he's a Kraken prospect. If I'm not
Seattle.
Yeah.
And Seattle loves him. And I know he didn't have the best OHL season last year and he kind of struggled and that's why he left and went back. But like he did good. He did really good. And he's a big reason that Czechia team has been successful the last few years. And yeah, a lot of it goes to his leadership qualities from what I've heard.
I was going to talk about almost the opposite side, same type of thing in maybe a disappointment side. I went into this telling everyone that I talked to about it in person that Dalibor Dvorsky was going to be the best player in this tournament in his 5th year. Slovakia coming off a couple strong years. I knew that the team wasn't as strong this year, but I got to say that Slovakia as a whole, Dvorsky, he chipped in a couple points, but that team as a whole just really was not what I expected from them at all in terms of a competitive standpoint.
I think it was only his 4th year. I think him and Sturbach are both in their 4th year.
No, it was his 5th.
Was it?
Yeah, it was his 5th World Juniors.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
He's only like 3 players ever or something that have been to 5. And then there's that kid on Switzerland, Nurembaum or whatever. He can
Neuschwander, yeah.
Yeah, he can do 6 years or something because he's like
15.
He's just turned 15, then he can do 16, 17, 18, 19, and then just before turning 20. So he can be like 6 full years or something. So
yeah.
Lucky birthday.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, that was my thoughts, is that Slovakia and Dvorsky both just didn't have the tournament I thought they would. So
they underperformed. Absolutely. I mean, Jeff and I and other like Steven and I were joking that Slovakia team is basically just the St. Louis Blues. They had like 3 or 4 draft picks of St. Louis Blues players just playing for them. But yeah, Dvorsky, I don't know, he had 9 points or something like that. But yeah, he did not do as well as I think a lot of people thought he would. This is a guy who, was putting up 13 to 15 points in the U18s, and even before that, like with like playing, or not before that, but playing with the World Juniors, like he had 10 points, I think last year, like 11 points, like definitely a down tournament for him for sure, and for Slovakia in general.
No, this isn't a hard stat, but just watching their games, I wouldn't think I'd be far off to say 5 to 6 of his 9 points were power play. Right? Like,
yeah, probably.
His 5-on-5 play wasn't there. He didn't look as dominant. But if you get him on the power play and you let him shoot, he's got a better shot than 99% of the guys there, so he's going to score. But outside of that, the 5-on-5, he didn't dominate the way that I thought he would, especially in his group. I mean, they were playing Sweden, who, yes, had the crazy defense, Czechia, who defended hard, but then we're talking about Switzerland and Kazakhstan. I mean, he should have had 9 points versus Kazakhstan, period, with how good he is. Yeah. And he didn't. So that's just my disappointing team in the tournament.
I agree.
All right. Let's get into the quarterfinals here, where we know it all fell apart for Canada. But we got, the relegation game. First off, Germany barely squeaked it out versus Kazakhstan. They were actually losing at 1.2 to 1. That was almost a crazy flip.
I wanted to see them get relegated.
I wanted to see Kazakhstan pull out, man. Like they looked excited. They looked like they almost beat Slovakia in like round robin. Like they took them to overtime. Like that's nuts. Like
exactly. Sweden only won by 1 over Latvia. Again, going back to Latvia, they played a fantastic tournament. U.S. destroyed Switzerland. That was pretty much the biggest upset game of the whole medal round. Finland beat Slovakia 5-3. And then Czechia upsetting, but not really upsetting because they were just the better team, beating Canada on home soil 4-3 in the final second.
It's so funny. This is consecutive years in a row. Czechia beats Canada at the last minute of regulation. Back-to-back years.
Wilbs, I want to know your thoughts on back-to-back years with London Knights scoring on their own goaltenders in the
that's just bad luck, man. Like it goes off Bonk's pants the year before, and then Dickinson gets it off his hand. Like that's just pure bad luck.
Bonk's is way more excusable than Dickinson's. There was a lot more different plays Dickinson could have done, and he used his hand, which is like your best weapon that you have as a person, and he still managed to fumble it inside. It was just bad. Again, he's overthinking the defensive side of the game because that's not his thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Canada's out there. And then we go on to the semis, which, everyone was thinking Sweden, powerhouse. I had Sweden to win gold. I was the only one of us 5 from Gameday Tarps to have them winning gold. Finland with the overtime upset on Sweden 4-3. That was a crazy game. Probably maybe the best game of the tournament, if maybe outside of the gold medal game. The rivalry between the Scandinavian countries, they wanted it both so bad. It was like all of a sudden Sweden's defense wasn't playing as good offensively as we've seen them. Wallinder and Axel Sandin-Pellika, they just weren't there like they had been. It was just a crazy game. Like you said, I think Kiskinen scored that game too, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Did you guys see James Duffy's statistic on TSN after that Finland and Sweden game? I think he said there was something about like 44 years of a drought for Sweden. Now, I don't remember 44 years without a gold, or I don't remember what it was.
Just how many medals because they won gold in 2012 with Sabinajad's winner in overtime against Russia. So they haven't won gold medal since then, and they've barely won any gold. I think they've only won 2 gold medals in their history.
Just the one. Yeah. That's the only one.
Is it just the one? It's just the one.
Yeah, it's just the one.
44 years without a gold. Just one. That's crazy.
Yeah, in 44 years, 1 gold. And since they won their gold, they're 65-9 wins to losses in the round robin play, and they haven't medaled in most of those years. So they go almost undefeated every single year, because we're talking about, 15 years of the tournament now since 2010. They've won 65 games, lost less than 10, and they still can't medal.
And look at us scrutinizing Team Canada here, boys.
Yeah, they deserve it, though.
They do deserve it.
And then U.S. were just too much of a wall for the Czechs. It was their year. The Czechs played as good as they could. The score is way more flattering to the U.S. I think it was like a 2-1 game, and then a late power play, and then an empty netter. So like it wasn't a 4-1 blowout like it looks like, but the Czechs played a hard game. They just couldn't break through the U.S. And then we got the bronze with. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the U.S. was so good, man. Like,
they were unreal.
That team was very well put together. Like, and even still questionable cuts for that team, like EJ Emery, he should have made that team, but whatever. But still, that team was unreal, man. Holy cow!
I disagree, because you're saying bringing the best players to a tournament means that you're going to be a good team, and I just can't accept that as the truth in today's hockey world.
No, of course.
So, sorry, respectfully disagree. Bronze medal game, Czechia does get their win versus Sweden in the longest shootout in the history of the tournament. 28 shooters it took.
In the history of the IIHF, wasn't it?
I think so.
Or just the tournament?
No, history of the IIHF. Yeah.
Okay.
It beat the 14 or 17 shooter one, whatever it was, when Canada won it.
Oh, 7 against the States.
Yeah.
The Jonathan Taves special.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So they took, and that was crazy. I don't know if you guys watched that, but it was like 10 misses and then a goal. And it was like the other team had to score, and then they scored. And then it was another 10 misses and then a goal. And then
are you talking about the Shala or I mean the Czechia and Sweden one?
Yeah. Chalet scored to have to save it.
Yeah, it was almost like a reverse Taves, because he missed 3 times.
Yes.
Had to come up, scored to keep it going, and then they brought him back, and then he scored again to win it. So it was kind of like pretty much a reverse JT.
Exactly. It was crazy. It was awesome hockey. Canada never could have put on a show like that if they made it to the bronze medal game. And then the final overtime was needed. Like I noted earlier, Cole Hudson did tie it late in the second, and then no scoring through the third led to overtime. When what was his name again? The kid who scored, number 2,
Teddy Stiga.
Teddy Stiga from
Nashville Predators prospect.
Yeah, fantastic goal for Stiga. His only of the tournament, he had 1 shot on net, 1 goal in the entire tournament. That was it.
That's like a Steenbergen.
Yeah,
Steenbergen or Akil Thomas.
Exactly. So, and you know what? That everyone's talking about Stiga or whatever. No, like everyone's talking about how good David Carl is afterwards or whatever, but no one's talking about him in that moment, throwing a guy who doesn't have a shot on net. When you have 10 guys better than him on the bench, it's a 3-on-3 overtime. You're basically just playing your best 6 to 8 players over and over and over again. And you throw a guy who doesn't even have a shot on net over the boards, and he goes and puts it in the net to win the gold medal. Like, some coaches just have it.
Yeah. David Carl's good.
No.
This is true. David Carl will definitely get an NHL job soon. That's for sure.
100%.
He just turned down coming back next year, so that tells you something is cooking. If he was still coaching college, he would take the job to coach the World Junior team. We know this.
Yeah.
You could tell he loves it. So if he's going pro, he can't take the job. Just can't.
No.
So that tells you someone's got him already signed. He just doesn't have it official yet.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens there, because I think he'd fit really well with an NHL team. Like, I don't know who's really looking for a coach, but like, I mean, he'd fit well with a younger team though, I think, and be able to kind of control the room and be able to kind of build that team like Chicago. Like, I don't know if Chicago needs another coach or if they wanted to switch their coach out of Luke. It's not Luke Richardson anymore. Who the hell is it? I don't even remember. But
I don't remember.
I would have almost.
Oh, it's their AHL.
Sorry.
He's young. He's a young Swede guy. He's like 38 or something, 38 or 40. But yeah, they just brought him up. He's a coaching prospect that's been around for a while that everyone loves. So maybe they'll give him some reins.
Yeah, But like, I don't know, Carl built that team, and like the way they built that team was so good, and his coaching philosophy and strategy. I mean, you've seen it now, back-to-back golds. So works
Yep.
out.
So many great players that were on Team USA that just made them so dominant. Like that first line alone, Haggins, Perreault, and Leonard. Like, man, Cole Iserman didn't get a lot of minutes, but man, whatever minutes he got, he played unbelievable.
Cole Iserman just chirping Easton Cowan after that goal was probably that's the best thing I've ever seen. I love it.
And let's just actually go back to coaching here. Dave Cameron versus David Carl. Let's just look at how they both handled their 13th forwards. It was a punishment to be Dave Cameron's 13th forward. Carl made it a gift. He was like, "You're a specialist. You're going to be incredible for us. We need you in the biggest moments, and you're going to score some huge goals for your country, but it's going to be sporadic." And Iserman bought into that. And Canada's 13 forwards, it felt like the biggest punishment. It felt like you weren't good enough to be on the team. It brought down everything. It was, if you screw up, you're 1 second away from being out of the lineup. Like that whole thing, right? Like just totally different mindsets all the way around. And yeah, Iserman scored like 5 goals in the tournament, and every one of them was big.
He was so sick in that tournament. Like, dude, yeah, he's pure legit goal scorer again, right? Like another Rakoff guy. You just give him the puck and it'll find the back of the net. But 100%, like guys who were Canada mainly swapped between what it was Rakoff and Martone that kept being the 7th player or the 13th player. Sorry, like, and it just, you're right though. It was more like it felt like it was a problem. Like if you were given that, it was a punishment. But it's like, why? Like, if anything, it's like you said, that's the biggest moment. That's when you're coming in to relieve a player who's dead tired, who you need to go out there and score that big goal. And that's, look what Teddy Stiga did, for Christ's sake.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. You're 100% right on that. I agree.
Yeah. I like your take, Ryley, there. The mindset in the room, right? Dave Cameron treated it as like, an embarrassment. You're the one getting scratched from the forward core. As of, USA, being that 13th forward, they put it in your head like, hey, you could play the hero. You could be the unsung hero in, game 7 of overtime, or get it, overtime of the gold medal match. So, and that's what happened, right? So it's all about the mindset, and Team USA definitely handled that so well with keeping their young guys engaged, positive thinking, just all around, just a great developmental program they got going on for Team USA.
For sure.
Take notes, Hockey Canada.
I think if we're talking about Carl NHL coaching jobs, the Sabres would be one where the Sabres would do anything to get him, and I don't think he goes. I don't think any young coach who has the future of that team's playoff drought on your hands, you don't go to. But I think a fun team that he would take on if they looked at it was get rid of Cronin in Anaheim and hire him there. Super young core, good players, chance to build something. Like, you just got to get Pat Verbeek out of the way too, because Verbeek has a short leash.
Pat Verbeek is something else. Yeah. And then Carl's tied to USA Hockey, and there's Trevor Zegras sitting right there.
Who
right?
needs someone to pick him up, right?
Oh my God, Zegras has like got the EA curse on him. The dude is fucking horrible right now. Doesn't even make sense. But he needs that. He needs that kick, and I think Carl. I was kind of be where I was thinking too. Is Carl could go to Anaheim because that's a younger team that needs that motivation to move forward, and they've got the prospect pool that they can really, they could really make something happen if they wanted to. My God, but it's going to take them a bit, right? And I think Carl, if he wants to get his foot in the door, that's the perfect team to get in with.
All right, let's end this off on our 2026 Canada predictions for the World Juniors. Mine, as I didn't have time, I don't know everyone from every league, so mine's inspired by Cam Robinson at Elite Prospects. I looked at his, I liked a lot of what he did. I changed it up a little bit, but that's who mine's inspired by. But we can go however we want. If you guys got your lists or whatever.
I got mine.
Go for it.
First line, Gavin McKenna, Caleb Desnoyers, and Porter Martone. So you
Nice.
obviously are just going to have McKenna and Martone light it up together because that's what they did at the U18 or the Hlinka Gretzky and the U17s. Then Michael Misa, Berkeley Catton, Bennett Seneca, but Catton maybe not because Seattle might keep him next year. So we'll see.
For sure.
Michael Hage, Jet Luchenko, Liam Greentree, Caden Lindstrom, Cole Baudouin, and Tej Aginla. And then I also have Roger McQueen and Carter Bear as 13th and 14th forwards.
Nice.
For defense, I did Schaefer and Perek, Dickinson and Jackson Smith out of Tri-City, and DuPont and Henry Muse. And I also have Kayshawn Aitchison as well in there. And then for goaltenders, I did George and Ravensbergen.
Nice. Mine's pretty similar. I'll bomb it out here. So I just went all out offense first line. I just went Misa, McKenna, Martone. Denoye, I didn't know much about, so I actually just left him off the team because I didn't know that much. But then I did, if he's there, Lindstrom, Catton, and Seneca, Iginla, McQueen, Greentree, Baudouin, Luchenko, and Hage with Bear as the 13th. I went ballsy. I went young. I just think these two, if they're both there, they're so good. I went Schaefer DuPont, first pair. I think that they could be that far out there. Then I went Dickinson, Perek, Verhoff, and Brunick. I thought if Brunick makes a team kind of as that, shut down. Apparently they really wanted him this year. If he's available next year, if he's not in Pittsburgh, because he almost made Pittsburgh this year, he could be there. And then Aitchison's my 70, and I brought 3 goalies, George, Ivan Kovic, and Ravensburg.
I feel like Ivan Kovic will probably end up being a returnee anyways. It'll probably be George and Ivan Kovic again. But you know why Brunick didn't make Pittsburgh? They couldn't afford him.
I didn't hear why. Really?
They couldn't afford him. Yep. Or else he would have been on the opening night roster.
Well,
Wow.
Really?
They didn't have the salary cap at the time for it. Or else
Typical
he would have
Penguins.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. But he would have made his NHL debut that night. So
That's awesome.
that week. Yeah. But he's sick, man. Like the guys I've talked to in like the scouting world love him. And maybe I'll say this after. I'll tell you guys after, actually.
No worries. Yeah, that's all good.
I knew there was something that was going to go down with the Blazers, but then he got injured. So let's just say that.
Fair enough. And I wondered that too. Like, again, you don't have to go into detail, but like with them being where they are, that's a big asset to sell if they were to do that. So
yeah, and there was plans. That's all I'll say. There was plans, and then he got injured, and everything just went sideways.
Fair enough.
I'll give you
list. Yeah, go ahead.
just no particular order. Just my max 25-man roster here. It's no order. So you got Ivan Kovic, obviously returning goaltender. Beckett Seneca, obviously going to be on this list. Cameron Schmidt of the Giants, boys. I think he definitely deserves to be there. Tej Aginla, obviously. Tarek Parasak of PG, Joshua Ravensbergen. Justin Carbonneau of the Armada. Also got Caleb Deone. Liam Greentree for my Windsor Spitfires. Definitely should have been there this year, like we mentioned. Zane Perrick and Kevin He from Niagara. Carter George, Gavin McKenna. Henry Muse of Ottawa. Michael Misa. Anthony Cristoforo, like I mentioned earlier. Alex Huang out of Chicoutimi. Matthew Schaefer, Malcolm Spence, another Erie Otter. Parter Martone, obviously. Justin Poirier. Carter Bear out of Everett. I have Jake O'Brien out of the Brantford Bulldogs. Kayshawn Aitchison, and also Sam Dickinson, who is actually eligible for next year's tournament. So that was my list.
Nice.
I
forgot about Spence. Oh, I miss. Spence is on my team. Someone else's cut. Spence is there.
Malcolm Spence is sick, man.
Spence is definitely there. I didn't have him on my mock. I kind of try to think outside the box. But then when I realized that I didn't have Spence on there, I'm like, oh shit, I forgot someone, didn't I? But they're gonna be loaded next year if they pick right. If they pick the right decisions, obviously pick the right coach. Which I already have my opinions on who I think the coach should be. We should be set in Minnesota. We should be set.
Throw it out there. Who's your coach?
Gardner McDougall, 100%. I think McDougall deserves. I think he deserves the job. He did very well in the U18s with Team Canada, and his resume just screams perfection. I really think Gardner McDougall would be an unreal World Junior coach. Obviously, I would love to see Dale Hunter back in his tournament again, but I don't think he would. I don't think he would do it again. I know he coached in 2020, the last time he coached, and I don't know if he would do it again. So I would honestly like go with Gardner McDougall on this one, that would be my choice.
Who does he coach day to day? McDougall?
Moncton.
Moncton? Okay. Who's the coach?
They are a wagon in the queue right now.
Yep.
Who was the coach for that the Canadian college team that went undefeated last year?
Yeah, it was him. McDougall.
He played for
UNB.
He
Oh, that
coached
was him?
UNB. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
do you
now
know how much
he's Moncton? Okay.
Moncton is paying him 6 figures? Like he's getting good money.
Crazy
to coach that team.
Also won a Memorial Cup with St. John in 2022. So
But I was
great
gonna
on the
say,
resume.
yeah, he's smart, man. He should be the coach. I 100% agree. That dude's nothing but winning caliber, or that's literally all he does, win. So
And he's a really good hockey coach. Like I've heard his systems he does in practices that he just loves winning. Loves winning. Yeah. I've heard good things about him on and off the ice. He would be the coach. He would be the coach to win. He would care about winning. He would make sure that like he's just the perfect coach. Like that's all I gotta say. There's nothing else I gotta say. Like he has it. He really has it.
I agree.
Anyone else have a roster prediction?
Well, mine looked exactly like Colton's. I just didn't do lines.
Nice. Look at us. See, the thing is, though, with mine, like, I have Schaefer on there. So, I don't know. Like, he probably won't make the team, but, like, because he's probably going to be in the NHL. So, I don't know. But, man, can Landon DuPont please play next year? Like,
yeah, he has been unreal this year, and he'll be even better next year.
He would have done so good at the World Juniors this year too. Like, if they actually just let him play, probably not in Dave Cameron's system, but man, he would have been so good.
They should have brought him to camp at least.
Yeah, that would have been interesting to see, and like even like the experience the kid's gonna have for next year too, because like Everett's on a tear. They're like the top of the Western Hockey League and looking like they might be a contender to win it. I don't know if that's going to happen. Though there's a lot of other like strong teams, but let's say Everett goes on a run, goes deep in the playoffs. He'll have that experience under his belt, and if somehow they end up winning the WHL finals, which who knows? I don't follow up too much with that league, but let's say if Everett wins the WHL finals and he's in the Memorial Cup, has a Memorial Cup experience already at 15. Like, that's huge. That is huge.
I want to see if Colton, you'll agree with me on this, but I think that Everett's comfortable. That is the right word to use, comfortable. I don't think their ambitions are to win it all this year because they got a really good core coming back next year and the year after that. So I think they're not going to go all in just yet. It's probably why we saw them being a little bit quiet this deadline. So what are your thoughts on that and what Wilbs was saying, that they maybe have a chance, but I think they're okay with where they're at right now, not trying to go all in.
I think that's kind of where they're at too, because you look at who the team is, right? DuPont and Bear, and there's younger guys in that system that they would rather build around them and focus more on the future than focus on the now. And like the playoffs is going to be a juggernaut. Like you look at what Spokane's done, you look at what just like Tri-City's done. You look at what Victoria did in adding guys. You look at the team PG has already.
Calgary, Lethbridge.
And then to go out east, exactly. Like the Central Division is going to be chaos. Like good luck to the team that comes out alive there. But I don't know. I think Everett is okay because I think that's the big reason why they weren't in on the Crystal deal, because they realized that in that moment they were probably better off just to kind of play that like role where they know they're probably only going to get to the second or third round and then get bounced anyways. And you just focus on the future. Keep your assets, focus on the future. You got DuPont, you got Carter Bear, you got other players that are going to come in. And so you just, I think that's like the best way for them to go about it too, was not make an egregious trade or make a trade out of like kind of like what Edmonton was looking at doing, the Oil Kings. They wanted to like randomly add players and do stuff. And it's like, why? Just because you think you're a half decent good team, why are you going to add players? Look at the Blazers. Did the Blazers add players? This is not a team and I know why. Don't worry, but this is a team that thinks that they can go far. It's not going to happen.
But the Blazers have ambitions this year?
Yeah.
Really?
That's the big reason why Emmett Finney is still on this team. They had calls off the hook for Finney. Didn't give him up. They think that they have something, whatever it is.
In this season.
And I don't see it. So you look at guys like Finney and Brunick and Kochi, three guys that likely would have been very valuable to other teams. And like, I know that there's a Central Division team that had a significant trade lined up for Brunick, but then he got injured and it went off the table. And that Central team went and acquired somebody else from Seattle instead. So, like, I don't know. I don't know why the Blazers thought that they would be ambitious this year, but you see that with Everett, and you see that with the Edmonton Oil Kings, and you see that with Prince Albert. And there's just these teams that think that they're good when they're not.
Yeah.
I'm going to add one last thought. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to add one last thought to that, Colton, is that speaking of Everett, they are the top dog. These Central teams, why they've been building up so much is to compete with that top dog. They're not desperate. They know they're the one to beat. So that's why they didn't make any moves, right?
And I think that's like the weird part too, though, is like they know they're the top dog, but like if they wanted to, they could have added somebody like a Crystal or just added anybody that had a little bit of that like playoff pedigree or that like oomph that they needed, but they didn't.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's
die mode.
No, and I think that's where they're going to get burned though, by not doing something that they probably should have done. But I see the bigger picture, which is build for DuPont and Bear.
Well, yeah, you have the DuPont until 27. Carter Bear is probably going to be there that time too. I doubt he'll make the NHL right away.
Nope.
So you got time to build for sure.
And like
in the playoffs, right? Is it 1 to 8 that makes it West and East?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so
isn't it?
I think so. That's why. So
yeah.
What are they out? I mean, Kamloops is technically only 3 points out, but if they play Everett, that's a 33-point difference right now in points. Like Kamloops doesn't even have 15 wins. Everett's 1 away from 30. I don't know what they're. And that's what Everett wants that. They're like, you guys gave us DuPont. Now we get you in the first round, and we're going to smoke you into next week, and you're going to give us rest for round 2.
Yeah. And Finney, Emmett Finney was a guy that I thought Everett would target heavily just because fits their kind of style and a player that they would take on. And obviously with the Memorial Cup pedigree that he has and brings, but I don't know.
Well, this Everett Kamloops love fest goes back like to Andre Vala and Garrett Pilon getting traded for Oren Centazzo and Onyebuchi. And these two teams have been trading players back and forth for years. Now we saw Zellweger come up, and now that led to Landon DuPont being in Everett and like all this, right? Like these two teams are always somehow linked to each other. And now we see it this year. Everett needed to offload a 20-year-old. They call up their buddies in Kamloops, say, hey, we got a 20-year-old here. We need to move him on. Do you want him? We'll give you first refusal. And of course, Kamloops likes the kids, so they take him. Right? So.
Then they waive Leighton Feist, which seems like some people were mad about that. So.
Is he a good? I don't know enough about it. Was he good this year?
He's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess
got it from Spokane.
Yeah, like I don't know. He's okay.
He only got no one picked him up, so I guess that tells you something, right? He cleared waivers. So
the one great trade that the Blazers made this year, Oren Strome. That's it.
Yeah.
That's been a beautiful addition for the boys. Oren Strome, absolute beauty out of PG.
Oh, PG we got him from, right?
Yeah.
He's sick.
But hey, he was an Everett boy first.
That's true.
I knew something was there.
It found its way around. I was so disappointed when they just released Kai Matthew. But then
they didn't release him. They just sent him down.
Well, it's release. It's a release.
Yeah. There's a whole story behind that.
Yeah, well, he just didn't have a good year either. Like he was.
Yeah.
So, but only guy in the dub I think that wears a tinted visor.
Dude, he was sick. His style was
His style was
disgusting.
unreal. Now
But funny that he's a guy that like was committed to the University of Denver and then dropped that to come play for us, and now he gets waived. He's probably like, "What the hell?"
Yeah,
he's been up and down for 2 years straight, has he not?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
that's tough. Ryan Gropp did that from Kamloops. Went to Seattle. That actually worked out for him though, but worked out better because he was playing with Barzell. That helped. That pushed him to a second round pick in the NHL.
Yeah, thanks Barzell for getting me drafted. No shit, hey.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about Gavin McKenna going to Michigan possibly?
That would be very interesting. That would be very interesting if that happens.
Because I know Michael Misa has got a lot of talk to go to Boston, and I know Michigan has put in their thoughts towards Martone and McKenna, and Canadians as of October can now receive NIL money.
Yep.
Well, if Misa and Martone sign NHL deals, they won't be able to. I would assume. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think Misa's going to get a contract, and I think Martone's going to get a contract too by the NHL. So I don't see it happening.
So Colton.
Mm-hmm.
That must mean Connor Levis never got signed by Winnipeg, hey? Because he was drafted by them, but I saw he had committed to Bowling Green, so he must never have signed, hey?
Okay. No. So he's going to end up revisiting the draft, I guess, or not even. No, I guess he won't be. Yeah, so he'll just have to get signed out of college.
He'll have no rights?
Wow. He'll have no rights, yeah. So, I don't know. It sucks for him, though, because he was good, but I know that there's, like, internal stuff with him where he's a little, and I shouldn't speak for him, but I know that there was a bit of animosity between him and the Blazers in terms of ice time and how things were kind of playing out, and that's kind of what led to the whole him being traded to Vancouver. So, I don't know. I think Levis is good. Don't get me wrong. He's going to have fun in the NCAA because that's where he was originally supposed to go. Was supposed to go to Michigan, but then he turned that down and he came to Kamloops. So,
jeez, yeah, you never know all the backstories. Hey, all these guys, which route, last minute. It was. I mean, I would have hated it. That choice, either never go to NCAA or never play in the CHL. Pick.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's a tough. Yeah. Now they get both, so no one ever has to worry about it again.
So, like, yeah, and like the big thing too is like we're seeing a lot of kids jump from the USHL back over to the CHL and do that whole thing. Like Noah Kosick is like the biggest one, right? Like he was committed to Michigan, was playing in the USHL, told Calgary, no, he's not coming to play there. Then this all changes and signs in Calgary, and now he's there. Yep. But we're not really seeing from who I've talked to, like Jeff Merrick and like Stephen Ellis and stuff, like over at Daily Faceoff, we're not really seeing a lot of guys that are active players getting, like, there's a lot of colleges going after them, but the big name players aren't really getting that because a lot, like, it's like you guys said, and it's like John Keane talked about on your guys' last episode. A lot of these guys just will end up getting drafted and making their salary anyways. So the NIL money and that whole side of it doesn't even matter when they've already been drafted, and that's the number one goal for them is to get drafted. So once they get drafted, it's done, right? So I think a lot of like guys like Martone and guys like Misa, you're not going to see them escape and go. Maybe Landon DuPont in 2 years will decide to go to the NCAA, but I highly doubt it. So I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. I think the way that we're seeing it is it's just going to be a lot more NCAA guys just dropping out of the USHL and coming over to the CHL. And then a lot of those older CHL guys getting those contracts or getting those NCAA scholarships. So,
yeah. And I think with McKenna, the only thing, so say he scores 150 points this year, right? Say MedHat does win the Memorial Cup. What more does he have to do in this league? And he still can't go pro? Maybe he makes the jump to show he can do it versus older guys, right? That's my thought. But yeah, I think you're right for like Misa and Martone. Maybe they do commit, because here's the thing. They can commit today, but it doesn't have to be. I would imagine they don't have to go at the end of the year. They can commit when they're done their junior career, they could say, right? So they could commit to that team, get drafted, then just sign their pro contract and not worry about it, right? They could have stuff behind the closed doors we'll never hear about that's committed to if this and this doesn't happen or that and that doesn't happen, right? If they get signed, if they slip to 10th overall and they don't get signed next year, yeah, they'll come play, right? Get some education, whatever, yada, right? Like that type thing. But not if there will be a lot of loopholes in the backdoor conversations that we don't know about.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's wrap this up. Episode 48 of the Game Day Tarps podcast. Thank you, Colton, so much again, man, for coming on our World Juniors recap. We're going to have you on with the trade deadline recap that we're going to do. We talked some of it today, but we're going to do a full breakdown with you and the Blazers' John Keane again as well. So again, thanks, man, for coming on. It was good to see all you boys again after the holiday break. Happy New Year to everyone who watched. Thank you for watching. Follow us at Game Day Tarps, at Blue Nose Hockey, at Wills Puck, and we'll see you episode 49. Thanks again, everyone.